wants everyone to subscribe to Adam and Tyler World. And if you don't do it, I'm going to hold you down and tickle you. Ha 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 ha.
No, seriously, do it now.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Adam and Tyler World. Thank you for joining me today. Well, UFC 252 is this Saturday. It's a rematch. It's the rubber match between Stipe Miocic, the current UFC Heavyweight Champion, versus DC Daniel Cormier, the former Heavyweight Champion. It's for the heavyweight title. It's not just for the heavyweight title. It's for the title of the greatest heavyweight of all time. I'm going to tell you exactly who I think is going to win and who I want to win. But before we do that, we're going to go down a little path and see how they became this rivalry. Well, they're going to have a third match coming up this Saturday. And at one point in time, they never even fought each other. But now it's going to be number 3. So, first of all, you had Stipe Miocic fighting in the heavyweight division. He ends up beating Verdum to win the heavyweight championship. Then he goes on to beat Alistair Overeem to defend it. Then he beats Junior Dos Santos. And then he beats Francis Ngannou. Meanwhile, while he's doing this, he is a firefighter at where he lives. Okay, he is a legit hero. He's not just a UFC fighter. He's a hero. And I get it. Alistair Overeem and Junior Dos Santos are long in the tooth, and they've been fighting for a long time, so they're not as big of names as far as, like, you beat him. It's kind of like beating Andre Arlovski. At one point in time, he was a dangerous person. Now, he goes out. So, but you have Francis Ngannou. He was the up-and-coming star. He had never even lost in the UFC. He was KOing people left and right. Everyone was afraid to fight him. But Stipe Miocic still fought him. In fact, people are so afraid of Francis Ngannou that it was like a month ago or so, DC was giving commentary for a fight, and he was talking about Francis Ngannou, and he said he didn't want to fight him. So let me get this straight. You want to be called the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time, but there's a dude you're afraid to fight. And not only just a guy you're afraid to fight, it's a guy that you're fighting, Stipe Miocic, who's also fought that guy, Francis Ngannou, and he beat him. That doesn't make any sense at all. Meanwhile, DC is fighting at light heavyweight, which is the weight class right below heavyweight. He used to fight at heavyweight when he was in Strikeforce days, but at some point in time, he went to AKA. He met Cain Velasquez. Cain Velasquez was a heavyweight, and DC's like, you know what? You take the heavyweights, I'll take the light heavyweights. We won't fight each other. That way we don't have to worry about any conflict or anything like that. We'll just, like, you take those and I'll take those. So that was actually pretty nice of DC. Or was it? Was he being nice to Cain and letting him have the heavyweight division? Or was he afraid of Cain because he knew Cain could beat him? Guess we'll never know. And while Stipe was fighting at heavyweight, DC was still technically fighting at heavyweight because he had a rematch with Anthony Rumble Johnson. He'd already beaten him once before, and he had to fight him again. And he came in weighing too much. And they have a thing in the UFC where if you weigh too much, they strip you down completely naked. You walk up on the scale, you walk up on the scale, they put a towel around you, you strip down completely naked to get as light as you possibly can to try to make the 205 pounds. Well, he still didn't meet the 205 pounds, so you know what he did? He did a thing that we like to call now to this day Towelgate, where he put his arms on the towel to relieve some of the weight, so he made 205. And that, my friends, is a cheater. And I don't understand why the UFC does this. There's a simple and easy way to get around this where you don't have to worry about stripping anybody naked and do anything like that. You know what you can do? I'm not the smartest guy on the planet, but I figured it out. I figured it out, people. UFC, if anybody's watching this, let Dana White know this. All you got to do is you figure out, okay, if you're whatever you are, or if you're a guy, you got shorts, those shorts weigh half a pound, okay? We know that because we've weighed them. They weigh half a pound. You put those shorts on, you walk on a thing. If you're supposed to make 205, if it says 205 and a half, guess what? You made it. You know why? Because you're wearing shorts that weigh half a pound. Ta-da! Problem solved. And of course, DC beat Anthony Johnson. Why? Because he's a heavyweight fighting a light heavyweight. And that's why they have weight classes. Because they don't want a heavy guy fighting a light heavy guy. So they make, you got to make 205. And DC didn't make 205. He cheated to get to 205. And then, of course, he had his rematch with John Jones. He lost it. But then John Jones tested positive for a small itty-bitty fraction of steroids. So he's also a cheater. So at this point, you've got 2 cheaters. You got John Jones and DC. John Jones kept messing up inside the ring and outside the ring cheating. DC was only cheating inside the ring, so DC was the lesser of 2 evils. So at this point, I was rooting for DC. And in the end, DC ended up getting his title back because it was considered a no contest. So back to Stipe. So Stipe had his match with Francis Ngannou, and in the build-up to it, Stipe felt like Francis Ngannou was getting more of a push and more light than Stipe was. And Stipe was like, hey, that's not fair. I'm the champ. You shouldn't be pushing this guy just because you think he's the next big thing. So Stipe actually ended up beating Francis, like I said, and beat the record for heavyweight defenses in the UFC. And after he won, instead of letting Dana White put the strap around him, he took it from him, gave it to one of his coaches, and told his coach to put it around his waist. And they asked him in the post-fight interview, why did you do that? And he said he felt like his coaches respect him. He respects his coaches respected him. So alluding to the fact that Dana White doesn't respect him. So then you got some friction there. Once again, Stipe Miocic has the record for defending the heavyweight championship 3 times. No one has ever done that before in the past. Not Kane, not Junior Dos Santos, not Brock Lesnar, not Shane Carwin, not any of those guys. None of them have done it, but Stipe Miocic has. So they brought in DC like, hey, your number's up. Kane's clearly not going to fight for the title for AKA to help get the title for them because he keeps getting hurt all the time. So we're going to, DC, you're up. And for the record, Kane actually fought Francis Ngannou at one point in time after all this is said and done. He got KO'd, and then he retired immediately thereafter and went to the WWE for a little bit until he was laid off. So his friend Cain Velasquez even fought Francis Ngannou, but DC, no, he's not going to fight him. If it was me and my friend got beat up by another person and I had the chance to fight that person, I thought, you know what, I'm going to avenge my friend right here. I'd step up and fight that guy. But not DC. He's nowhere to be seen because he's a wuss. And he's a coward. He's a cheat. He's just a horrible person. So we finally get Stipe versus DC 1. There's a lot of back and forth. You could say one was winning and the other one was winning. We don't know. But at one point in time, in only the first round, Stipe gets a nice little thumb to the eye from DC. You can go back and watch it. I put the links down below. And he pokes him in the eye, and the ref comes in. Hold on, stop. Gives him a second, like, are you good? You good? Stipe is like, yeah, I'm good. Then they go back to fighting. Not 1 minute later, less than a minute, they're huddled against each other, and then Stipe is like wrestling around with him. DC goes, wham! Hits him right here on the left side where he can't see and KOs him. Now, there's 2 things about this particular KO. The first is the fact that Stipe Miocic had just fought Francis Ngannou like 2 months earlier, and he took quite a bit of damage because, once again, Francis Ngannou was knocking out everybody, but not Stipe. No, Stipe was able to weather the storm and go 5 rounds to the decision, and because of that, he took a lot of damage. So when he got hit by DC, that folded him up real quick, which normally wouldn't have KO'd him, is a theory, because, once again, he was still hurt from fighting Francis. Number 2, he had just been eye poked by DC, okay? There's a reason why it's considered illegal, or as I like to call it, frowned upon in the UFC, because it's definitely not illegal. You can do that all the time. DC does it. John Jones does it. Tons of people do it. You can kick someone in the nuts. Just kick them square in the nuts. As long as you make it look like an accident, oops, my bad, no punishment. But guess what? That fighter you just eye gouged or kicked their nuts all the way up into their throat, they're not the same fighter. Those are 2 very sensitive areas, the eyes and the nuts. But if you can get away with it smoothly and just go, oh, my bad, then advantage for you. Now, if you're fighting, you could technically fight with your right hand broke or your left hand broke, whichever one, but you can't fight blind no matter what you're doing. If you're blind, you're dead in the water, and that's exactly what DC did. I think he picked it up from his good friend John Jones, and DC likes to pretend like, oh, he's this high and mighty goody two-shoes, like, oh, I don't cheat. You're just as bad as John Jones when it comes to cheating. You may not have been tested positive for steroids, but you do the eye poking, you do the towel gate, you do all this stuff, you're no better than him. In fact, the fact that you think you're better than him makes you worse than him. So after DC beats Stipe Miocic, Brock Lesnar comes to the ring, and they build up for this super fight, Stipe Miocic versus Brock Lesnar for the heavyweight championship. And instead of giving Stipe a rematch because he's the longest defending heavyweight champion of all time, they go, no, back of the line, buddy. We're going to build this super match. And I can't blame anybody. I can't blame DC for that, or Brock Lesnar, or the UFC, because that would be a huge match. But that's just how it goes. I mean, sometimes life isn't fair, but you can see how Stipe would be mad about that. So the Brock DC super fight never happens because Brock Lesnar decides, you know what, I'm going to stick with the WWE, stick with my steroids, do that. It's a much easier schedule. I don't want to get actually punched in the face. And I'm not blaming him. I'd much rather do that if I was him, just get paid lots of money to show up every once in a while. And I'm not hating on Brock. I think Brock is awesome. Once in a lifetime athlete. He's the reason why I watch UFC today. Meanwhile, Stipe is begging for a rematch because he knows he could have possibly beat DC because DC was cheating. and he just got lucky with that right hook. But they don't do that. And what they do, they give DC versus the Black Beast, Derek Lewis. Derek Lewis is a monster. He'd kick my butt easily, but he's definitely no Stipe Miocic. So once again, you got DC running scared like a little chicken from Stipe Miocic. And finally, Stipe Miocic gets his rematch with DC that he's been wanting for over a year now. He finally gets it. And I got to hand it to DC. He was beating Stipe those first couple of rounds, possibly 3-4 rounds, 3 for sure. He was most likely beating him, but who knows what Stipe was afraid of? Maybe he's afraid of some of those eye pokes to happen again. But then again, DC wouldn't do that again, would he? He did do that again. And if you don't believe me, I got the link to that fight down below in the comments section. So somewhere like maybe at the end of the 3rd round or something, definitely in the 4th round, Stipe realizes, oh, I can left uppercut him in the gut and just hit him. He just, ooh, and just see DC kind of, ooh, make that noise. And he kept doing it over and over again. And he did it about 13 times. On that last one, you see him hitting, he goes, ooh, ooh, like that. And just like a shark that tastes blood in the water, Stipe's like, oh, I'm going in for the kill. Just wham, 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 punch him. Just DC's like taking it, just falling backwards, just falls back into the cage. And DC's just taking punches to the face. Oh, it's so good. I got to watch this live when it happened, and I was at my friend's house. And before the match, I thought DC was going to win again because he beat him the first time. I thought, well, he's going to beat him a second time, and Stipe is never going to be heavyweight champion again. But when DC's folded over, and fell into the cage, and Stipe was just raining down on him with just fists of fury, just I got so pumped. I've seen that 2 times. My blood gets so boiled. I'm thinking right now, I just get so amped. Thinking of DC just getting rocked just because he's a cheater, and finally Stipe gets to put his hands on and just knock him out. It gets me so happy. And of course, after DC's lost, he was complaining, saying, I want a rematch, I want a rematch. Quit being whatever, blah, blah, with your pretend eye injury, which probably was from being poked in the eye because you're a cheater. And he just kept begging for a rematch. But Stipe just like, nope, you didn't give me my rematch immediately. You got to wait, old man. Just wait. I think he was waiting for him to retire, and then that's why DC's kind of like, he pushed it back, like, all right, I want this last match because I want to finish on top as heavyweight champion. In fact, I called DC out on this on Instagram because he was complaining to Stipe because he wanted a rematch, and I called him a cheat and how he didn't deserve a rematch because he didn't give him a rematch and all the eye poking, and he blocked me. So, so that just proves that he knew he was wrong. Like, if you knew something and you were right, you could kind of come up with some evidence, go, no, blah, blah, blah. But I presented him with the facts. Guess what? Stipe lost to you. You didn't give him an immediate rematch. You made him wait over a year. And 6 months into this, you're already complaining for a rematch? No. You don't get to say anything, buddy. You lost. You got your stomach jacked. You got your face punched. It was so awesome. You got to sit on the sidelines, buddy. But they finally came up with a rematch, the 3rd match. Which brings us to Saturday, UFC 252, Stipe versus DC 3. DC's already said, win, lose, or draw, I'm retiring. I'm done. After this match, I'm sailing off. Stipe, in theory, could do it too. He hasn't said he will, but there's a lot of people speculating that he might if he loses or if he wins, especially if he loses. And they also get the title of the greatest heavyweight of all time, even though DC is afraid to fight Francis Ngannou. But who am I to say anything? I mean, just to do with facts. Now, this octagon they're going to fight in is considered a smaller cage. I don't know how much smaller, but it is smaller. And a smaller cage, in theory, helps out a wrestler because you got less room to run when you're a striker. So this is definitely better for DC, not better for Stipe. But I'm not surprised because, once again, you got the friction with Stipe, with Dana White, and you got DC, who's a company man who does the commentary and does all that kind of stuff. So while DC is doing commentary, Stipe is just off being a hero, you know. Don't worry about that guy. He's just saving lives. So with the smaller cage, odds are DC's going to win. I hate to say it. I want Stipe to win. But whoever does win is most likely going to get a super fight. Not with Brock Lesnar, but with Jon Jones, the current light heavyweight champion. People have talked about they should strip Jon Jones. Dana White said no, and there's a reason why. Because it looks so much cooler if the light heavyweight champion goes up once again like DC did and fights the heavyweight champion. Now, I would love to see DC versus Jon Jones 3, but this time at heavyweight, because DC, maybe at heavyweight he can knock out Jon Jones. Probably not, but we don't know if we don't see it, and I would love to see that fight. But more than that, because I don't want to be selfish, more than that, I want Stipe to beat DC. I want him to shut DC up and make him realize, oh wow, I'm only 3rd on the planet. Jon Jones is better than me, Stipe Miocic is better than me, and I'm just right here on 3rd. So that was what I would love to happen. But that is it. We will not know until this Saturday. I'm excited to see it. I don't know, hopefully if you're watching this long, you're probably going to watch it too. That is it. Hope everybody enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like this video, comment below, subscribe, and share, and all that fun, happy stuff. I do appreciate it. Until next time, peace.